Do not move to Phoenix until you watch this video. My name's Trevor Bragg. I moved here about 8 years ago now to the Phoenix area, and there are definitely some facts you need to know about Phoenix that are maybe a little bit surprising, and you need to know them before you move here to make sure that this is the right decision, that you're going to be moving to the right place for you or not. Now, these are 10 facts that you probably don't know or wouldn't know unless you've already lived in the city of Phoenix, and these are honest things that I've learned since living here that I wish I knew before I lived here. And so I actually created this totally free moving to Phoenix guide. If you want that, my email's on the screen. I'm a realtor here in the area, and that's everything you should know about all the different cities, all the different things you should know about moving to Phoenix. And here's a video summarizing 10 of the more important things you should know before you move to Phoenix to make sure it's the right spot for you. And the first one, well, you might already know this one, it's the heat. A few facts about our heat is that we have over 100 days on average of over 100 degrees. So there's over 100 days per year where you're going to check your temperature on your phone and it's going to be over 100 for the high of that day. We have sunshine for over 300 days a year. We get rain, I don't know, 5 to 10 times a year. And well, let's just say it gets hot quite often. It's not too crazy for it to be over 110 in July and August for at least a few days. That's not like the average, but it's going to be over 110 for quite a few days in those months, and it is going to be hot here. And you already knew about the heat, but maybe you don't know how it affects some of your day-to-day activities, like things like the age of your roof is going to last shorter if you don't have a tile roof on it. Your grass outside is more annoying to grow because of the heat. You have to actually plant different grasses depending on the season. We have a summer grass and we have a winter grass. If you've ever been here during either of the seasons that they're reseeding, you'll see golf courses go completely dormant and cut off their grass for about a week to reseed to the proper grass. Different things that you leave outside, like your cars or your lawnmower, those things are going to break down quicker because of how hot it gets here. So our heat is a pretty obvious one, and it's something that really revolves around the entire city, right? The entire city revolves around heat, that is. So we all kind of base some of our decisions on what the weather is going to be like, and our city kind of prides itself around, well, it's going to be hot here, and we all know that, so we try to make changes based on that. Everyone knows not to be out at 2 p.m. in the middle of July. That's just not a time you're going to be spending outside, so you're going to book things for inside. Maybe you'll go to a water park at that thing. We have a lot of indoor activities, but overall, the heat is something you can't miss. If you didn't know it was over 100 pretty common here, you probably have not done much research on Phoenix just yet, or maybe you haven't even heard of the city if you didn't know it's quite hot here. So we'll skip through that one pretty quick because you know all about the heat here in Phoenix, I'm guessing. The second one that may surprise some of you is that we actually do have some unique weather. Now, we kind of pride ourselves, we don't have the natural disasters, we don't have tornadoes, hurricanes, we don't have earthquakes, we don't even have many fires here in the Phoenix area, which is very prevalent right now in California. Definitely my prayers go out to everyone living around that area in particular, but we don't tend to have many wildfires, at least near Phoenix. More up north do we see some of that. And so we don't have a lot of natural disasters, but we do have two things that kind of happen on a regular basis. The first one is monsoons, which are basically just crazy thunderstorms, tons of wind, tons of rain and lightning, and it just happens very quickly. That's kind of why they're called a monsoon. They just fly through the area. It could be sunny outside, and then an hour later you have a monsoon hitting you and it's crazy windy and you're getting covered in rain. These tend to happen in our hotter months like July and August. The heat kind of creates these more unnatural events, and it's nothing crazy, especially if you come from somewhere that gets thunderstorms. It's not going to be that much of a shock. It's just one of our weather things. But the second one is a haboob, which is really just a dust storm. So yes, Phoenix has a lot of dirt surrounding it. It is a dust-filled area in terms of all the surrounding landscaping, and there are certain times, I don't exactly know what caused it, I'm assuming it has to do with the wind patterns, but we get these dust storms that come all through our city, and you'll see these crazy pictures, I'll show you some of these, where it just looks like it's getting engulfed the entire city in dust, and what's actually happening is just kind of blowing through. It gets really windy, and you don't really want to be outside during these. It's probably not too healthy. They usually don't last too long. I've been in about 3 of them where I've actually been like outside, driving or in a restaurant or something like that, and they maybe last at most an hour, but most of them were like 20 to 30 minutes that you're just kind of sitting there. If you're driving, especially when it gets to low visibility, when you're kind of in the middle of it, you're either going 10 miles an hour or you just pull over, ideally, to the side of the road if you can. So that's really the big change. And also around your house, you have to make sure whenever you see these coming through, like, don't have a window left open, right? If you're like venting air in, you don't want that window to be open while the dust storm comes through, or else you'll have dust all in your house. And it gets pretty windy during these, so the dust will get into your home for sure. So haboob is what they're called. Yes, funny name of those, but those are pretty common here. Maybe a few times a year we're getting those, but just make sure you're indoors and your house is kind of well equipped for that when it comes. Number 3 is that we do have some pretty intimidating, creepy crawlers. We have some pests here that I know people are very scared of. If you've seen, Phoenix mentioned on a cartoon, guaranteed they're going to show a scorpion walk by and a rattlesnake, right? That's probably what you're going to see. Maybe coyote in the background too, right? So we do have some creepy pests here, and they look scary. Like, I'm going to be honest, scorpions are freaky looking. I don't want to see one of those. I've seen a few of them around here. They're creepy looking. And so I think that's why they get such a name recognition, is that we're one of the few places that has a common amount of scorpions and rattlesnakes. But I do got to admit, they're not something you're seeing on a daily basis. Maybe if you're on one of the houses in the outskirts, you're going to see more rattlesnakes and scorpions. But in general, you're not seeing a lot of those. But they are intimidating, and they are things you should probably plan around. So the main thing is, over summer, you probably don't want to be going on a hike when it's over 100 degrees, which means you're probably going at like 6 a.m., and that's about it, really. Maybe you could go in the afternoon and it's cooled down a little bit, but rattlesnakes like the heat. They're dormant over the colder months, and so you don't ever see them on hikes when our weather is great, but over summer is when they come out, and when people have interactions with them, it's because they're probably hiking over summer. It's not too common. I haven't heard of many people that even ever had one in their yard before. I know I've heard stories like, oh, we had one come right through, but I don't hear that too common. It's usually people that live backing up to open land. You could actually put like kind of a chicken wire against your fence so that nothing gets in it. And scorpions are probably a more prevalent issue that people have seen in their houses. I've never had one in my house, and most people don't ever get one in their house. Again, it's more common if you live on the outskirts of town where your backyard opens up to a common area. But the main thing is, we have some powerful bug spray that you can use that's specific to scorpions, that's very deadly, and you just spray the perimeter of your house and the perimeter of your yard. You really shouldn't deal with it much. So that's something you definitely should know and plan for, especially if it's a big concern to you. And even more, if you're going to live on the outskirts, that's going to be something you should invest in, is some commercial grade pest spray specifically for scorpions. Now, the 4th fact is that we have these people called snowbirds here, and maybe you've heard of those. Those are people that are flying into Phoenix during their snow months to come visit us during our nice months, which is really from October to around the middle of April is when the most common time you're going to be seeing these snowbirds. And really their most common time is February and March, revolving around spring training and when other places around the world have tons of snow. And snowbirds, the reason that they're something you should know about is they kind of have a negative connotation to them. And now I personally don't have this connotation. I work with a lot of snowbirds. It's a pretty common person buying a place here in Phoenix, and mine are great people. Many of my past clients, I love them. I love spending time with them. I don't view them as maybe the stereotypical snowbird, which is someone that's kind of more stuck up. They're rich. They get their way. They're a little snobby. That's kind of the connotation of what a snowbird is. And the other thing, they cause traffic. For one, maybe they drive slow. That's also something that people say about them. They tend to be older people, so drive a little bit slower. But also, there's just a lot more traffic when snowbirds are here in Phoenix. I mean, really, they bring about a large chunk of our population, especially in February and March, so you will start to notice the roads be a little bit busier. But snowbirds are something that it's just a part of life here, and they do have a negative connotation, so you should know about them, although not everyone holds this connotation about them. But if you were just to see videos online about them, there's probably going to be some people that don't love snowbirds. Like I said, it sure depends on the person that's coming in to visit. I've had some great people, but I know that there's a lot of people that don't love them, especially people that work in like a restaurant industry. They tend to have more interactions with them maybe than they prefer. And my wife is also an ER nurse at near a popular snowbird location, and she tends to have some of those more snobby interactions as well, maybe more than I do as a realtor. And number 5 is our desert landscape. So this is just a fact about Phoenix you have to know. If you love seeing the pine trees, if you love walking out your door and breathing the fresh air of pine trees and hearing a river in your backyard, you are looking in the wrong spot. All of our open land is dirt. We do have some natural plants going, which are really just dead bushes, is pretty common there. Of course, we have cactus, which we are very famous for, but overall, our landscape is dry. We have brown colored mountains that are full of dirt and rock, and our open lots are all going to be dirt. We don't have any sort of natural grass greenery. You drive around, everything that you say is green, was likely planted by a human. Now, surprisingly, the Sonoran Desert is actually one of the more lush deserts in the world. I don't even understand how that makes sense. It's a desert, but it's lush. But that is true that our Sonoran Desert has a lot of natural plants to it, but most of them are very hardy and spiky, hence cactus, and things that maybe aren't the most beautiful compared to the gorgeous evergreen trees up in the mountains. Now you have access to that up in Flagstaff, but our desert landscape is something you have to know, you have to embrace. You're moving to a desert, it's not going to be as pretty as likely where you're coming from, right? Unless you're moving from a desert, you probably have a lot more natural greenery than here in Phoenix. So you got to know that before you move here, that you can't expect to have a super lush green area. There's a few small pockets that do really well. They've got some irrigation systems for an entire community that makes it a little bit greener, but that's definitely not the common place here in Phoenix. The next thing you have to know about are our sports teams, and really that they are negative. That's why I bring it up. It's just a fact. You're going to come to Phoenix, you're going to move here, you want to root for the local team, and you're going to be disappointed. I got to be honest, you're going to be disappointed, mostly because we constantly have this ever-going cycle of optimism, of hope, of the team's going to turn around. Look at all the players the Suns got. Look, they just got Kevin Durant, one of the best players ever. We got him on our team. We're going to make a run in the playoffs. And then you see us barely get into the playoffs itself, lose first round. You see us have one of our best teams ever. We had this Game 7. It looks like it's going to be this great matchup against the Mavericks, and we get torched by like 40 and just embarrass ourselves. The Diamondbacks have been a pretty sad organization. Besides the lone championship in all of Arizona sports, the Diamondbacks do hold. And actually, they did make a reversal. We weren't very optimistic about the Diamondbacks recently, and then they made a World Series run, only to lose in the World Series. But hey, that season I would count as a win for what was expected of them. And then you look at the Cardinals, who are just a constant year of disappointment. I mean, they are the true epitome of optimism, only leading to failure and not even making the playoffs this year. I mean, what an embarrassment. That was a team that seemed like they should be turning a corner. They get their star receiver, and nothing really changes. They are just a disappointment again. So if you are coming to Phoenix to watch our amazing sports teams, just expect to be disappointed. Now, I will say it is fun when they are good, and when that optimism kicks in, the whole city loves it. The whole city loves rallying around. Like when the Suns were in the finals, we were rallying around it, only to lose in the finals, of course, and lay an egg there. But besides that, we're a fairly big disappointment when it comes to our sports teams, and something you just got to know about Phoenix. Hey, if you're coming here, you're going to probably hear some optimism about the sports teams. Make sure to shut that down pretty quickly. Next thing you have to know is that we have pretty bad public transport here in Phoenix, and it's mostly due to the actual landscape of Phoenix. So maybe this could be something that you have to know. We have a pretty big urban sprawl here in Phoenix. Like our city spreads out really wide in terms of you could drive 30 miles and still be in the Phoenix area. If you're going across the 30 miles north, you can still be in the Phoenix area. 30 miles west or east, really south, you don't go too much farther past South Mountain down there because there's a big mountain. But besides that, we have pretty big urban sprawl. So really, besides actual downtown, there's pretty minimal public transportation. And even within downtown, there is a light rail system that goes to downtown from a few different major points. But in reality, very few people use public transportation in Phoenix, even those living near downtown, simply because it's pretty minimal. There's just not a lot of options for it. And, I'd say 99% of our people living in Phoenix are commuting themselves to work. Not many people are using any form of public transportation, even in the downtown areas, especially, downtown Phoenix has some, downtown Scottsdale and Tempe, very minimal as well. So you're not going to see many uses where you're going to be using public transportation. And so for those of you that may be relying on that, or maybe coming from a big city that has great public transportation, that's not what you should be expecting here. You're probably almost guaranteed going to need a car to be getting around and own a car. So something you should plan on is to not be relying on our public transportation because it's pretty minimal. Now, these next two I'm going to combo together because they're kind of similar, but they are two separate ones. And the first half is our summers outdoors. So our summer is hot. You know this. And the bummer is, summer is the time when you want to be outdoors. That's when your kids are out of school. That's when most people picture it, probably wherever you're coming from. Summer is probably a great time to be outdoors and doing things outdoors. Well, in Phoenix, it's actually the opposite. The other 3/4 of the year, probably a more enjoyable time to be outdoors than summer itself. And so it's definitely a negative fact about Phoenix that the time when most people want to be outside, you actually don't want to actually spend time outside because of how hot it is. And I think this negative fact goes particular to families with kids. And something you have to plan around is, well, your kids are not going to be able to spend too much time outdoors, and they really shouldn't be, especially in the middle of the day. Now, at the beginning of the day and when the sun goes down, it's not brutal. As long as you got plenty of water on you, you're going to be able to spend time outside. You can even go for a run in the early morning. It'll still be hot. It'll still be probably like 90 degrees, which is insane. It could be 6 a.m. and 90 degrees. You probably won't believe me until you experience it. That was my experience. At like 11 o'clock at night, I walked out of a building and it was over 100 degrees. I didn't think that was possible. Like, the sun's not there and it's still 100 degrees. It seems impossible, but it is not. It is possible here in Phoenix. We break all rules of weather when it comes to heat. And so you're probably not going to be spending time outside, especially in the middle of the day, say from like 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock. You almost don't want to be outside for more than like 20 minutes without it just getting brutally hot. Now, of course, you could go to a splash pad or a water park with the kids, but besides that, like in your backyard itself, unless you have a pool, you're probably spending very little time outside when it is summer and when it is especially in the middle of the day. So you have to plan around that, especially for those with families. Like, your kids are going to be doing more things indoors. Now, of course, Phoenix does adapt. We have lots of indoor activities, indoor play places and parks and things you can do indoors, or they have splash pads at just about every single park where they're going to be able to cool off. But you do have to plan around that, especially if you work from home, right? If you and your spouse work from home and then you have your kids home over summer and they can't go outside, that's probably going to be a little bit of an issue for you and something you're going to have to plan around and figure out what are you going to do while they are here and they have to be inside because of how hot it is. So our summers outdoors are not ideal. And the next one that I'm kind of combining together is our lack of seasonality. And so some people from other states love the idea that they get different seasons. They get summer, they get fall, spring, winter, and really we basically only have summer, and then we might have a mini spring. I mean, we do not have a fall season. If you're coming here for our fall colors, you're going to see basically green or brown plants, because our plants really don't change colors. They're very hardy. I mean, look at a cactus. It's going to be green all years round. It's going to be spiky and pointy all years round. So we have very little seasonality just because of what our weather is going to be like. And to understand what the weather actually looks like, maybe from a standpoint of degrees, we'll see from like May all the way to really the end of October, you could easily be seeing 90 to 100 degrees within those months. The end of October, you start to see it cool down a little bit. But if you're at 90 degrees, you are basically in summer, right? I'm sure that's summer where you're coming from. And then from November to, let's say, April is when we probably have more of our spring season. It's a little bit of our fall, winter, and spring all joined together. Spring is really lasting about 2 months here in March and April when we get some nice blooms and some of our more pretty plants actually bloom. But besides that, it's just cooler weather. All it is, it's sunny, cooler weathers where it's 70 to 80 degrees from October to about February, and it's going to be just sunny. There's no seasonality. There's no time where we get a lot of rain. There's no time where we get snow. There's no time where our leaves change color. We don't have seasonality here. We have sunshine for over 300 days of the year. So if you're coming for seasonality, you're coming to the wrong spot. And the last thing is going to be our high electricity bills. So you have to know that, your AC is your lifeline here in Phoenix, and that's what everything kind of bases around, especially over summer. You go from your well-air-conditioned house to your well-air-conditioned car to your air-conditioned job. So AC is going to be a vital thing, quite literally life-saving feature to your life while you're here in Phoenix. And your electricity bills are going to get quite high over summer because that AC is literally running 24 hours a day. And that definitely brings your AC bill up, and it could be quite high. It's not crazy for people to see an electric bill get over $500 in a month over summer. It just depends on how cool you keep it, basically. And so it's going to be hot. Now, if you want a point of reference, of course, you can look up online. But for myself, 1,800 square foot house, we are looking at an average bill of around $200 to $230 a month across the year. That's an average. Now, over summer, that bill definitely jumps to over $400 for our June to August months. September, it's close to there as well. The counterbalance is that, well, from November to February, when it's 70 to 80 degrees outside, you're barely touching your AC or heater at all, and so your bill's going to be pretty low, under $100. So that's where you get that balance to maybe $200 to $250 on average. but your electric bill over summer, you got to budget for it because it jumps. It's going to double, if not triple, from what your average is going to be. And so it's something you have to plan around, especially if you use your AC quite a bit, or if you keep your house extremely cool, or if you're cooling off your pool or whatever you're using for electricity, you're going to see that bill jump quite high over summer. So those are 10 things you need to know before you move to the city of Phoenix. Hopefully that helped you. Again, I'm a realtor here in the Phoenix area, and I have this totally free Moving to Phoenix guide. Just email me. It's everything I wish I knew before Phoenix. It's got a lot of what I talked about in this video and a lot more breakdowns of all the different cities, kind of what the cities are about, and to see if maybe they'll be a good fit for you or not. So thanks so much for watching. Hopefully I produced some red flags that maybe you need to work out and make sure it's still the right place for you. And hopefully this didn't discourage you too much. I do love the city of Phoenix, and I'm living here for a reason. It's a great place to live, but there's definitely some things you got to know before moving here. Thanks so much for watching.